Hola clase, bienvenidos al final de la clase. Welcome to the last 2 weeks of class. I know that there's been a lot of questions and confusing about the final capstone project and module, so I wanted to create this video to help, as well as giving you the exact instructions for the oral final as well. So when you go in here to Unidad 6, capstone and final work, you can see all the different checklists, things to do. You can go to Final Tasks Overview, and I'll put this video actually into the final week. The capstone, you can choose a city from the following list. So you're going to go sign up for groups like you did for the oral midterm based on the time and date that works for you. And then even before you do that, you can already start working on your city. So you don't have to have the same city in the same group that you sign up for. It's a little bit easier this way. For students, for everyone. So you can choose a city that you'd like to work on from this list. Then you're going to create your final project. The draft is due this Wednesday, so if you want to do a draft, which I know a couple of you have done, is due Wednesday. That way I can review it, and then the final draft is due on Friday. So if you do a draft by Wednesday evening, I will review them all and grade them on Thursday, and then that gives you a day still to correct anything you want to. Okay, then the final project video submission is actually due 48 hours before your final project, before your oral final. So I'll put in a date, since the oral finals are on the 24th, I'll put in a date of due date of the 22nd. That way it's kind of for everyone around the same time. And that gives the other people in your group that have signed up for that oral final group, time and date, a chance to watch your video, review it, and ask questions about your city. And the idea is that you come up with questions that are pretty open-ended so that we can kind of create a conversation about the cities. So if I see that there are 2 people that did the same city, I'll probably play both of those videos, and then we'll come up with a conversation. If they're all different, then we'll do each of them separately and have a little conversation about each one of them. But then the conversations will be shorter if there's only one person presenting on a city. If there's 2 or 3 people presenting on the same city, then our conversations might get a bit more involved, right? So it's just about kind of coming up with some open-ended questions that you can then help to ask. Think about the kinds of things you would want to be asked about your city, right? So next thing you'd want to do is go into the final. So you have your video assignment, listening, which is just a basic assignment, your culture discussion as well. But here's the final project, written project. So let's take a look at that real fast. So you want to look at the capstone instructions. It really goes into detail of exactly what you want to have in your final written project. And this is your study guide for your oral final. So think of this written project as the study guide that you are creating, as well as your video, right? So, imagina que trabajas para la oficina de turismo en la ciudad y es tu responsabilidad atraer a más turistas a la ciudad. Investiga sobre la ciudad que seleccionaste, y describe lo que podría hacer un turista en la ciudad usando la siguiente estructura. So really using usted o tú consistentemente. So really choose usted or choose tú and make sure that that's consistent throughout your essay, throughout your project. That's definitely a big thing I'm looking for, is making sure you're not mixing the two. No mezclar los dos. So one thing for you to do after you write it yourself, to go through it again and make sure, am I using usted consistently, or am I switching back to tú? Or am I using tú consistently, or am I switching back to usted when you're talking to your audience, right? Who is your audience here? Make sure that you stay consistent. And then looking at the body of your essay, right? What do you want to look? Lugares de atracción, medios de transporte, el medio ambiente, información sobre un tema de la actualidad, right? Días festivos importantes, y una conclusión. So 500 to 600 words equals about 2 to 2.5 pages double space, Times New Roman, 12-point font. And that does not mean 2.5 pages if you have a giant quarter to half a page title things, right? Your title and your little thing on the side with your name and the class should be very small and not take up most of a page, right? So 500 to 600 words usually means about 2 to 2.5 pages. Make sure you use the imperfect subjunctive, conditional, and future tenses. So I am looking for those. You're incorporating vocabulary from units 2, 3, 4, and 5. An academic heading, but again, or a cover page, which would then be an extra page. The academic heading, again, shouldn't take up more than a small amount of the page. And a bibliography of your resources. Okay, and then this is your study guide, right? So you're creating your study guide, and then based on this study guide, you're then going to go ahead and create a video. And so big thing with the video that's really, really important to note, there's a couple things that I'm really paying attention to, because the video isn't its own grade in the D2L gradebook, right? The video is part of your oral final grade. So the video, I'm really making sure that it's 2 to 3 minutes. I do not want a long video, right? Because otherwise we're going to use all of our time in the oral final watching a 5-minute video when we really want to be discussing what was in the video. So you want to keep it short. You want to narrate your summary in Spanish while displaying the images you gathered, right? Screencasting. So you're going to summarize, put together a video, and you can do it like in a PowerPoint if you want. The big important thing is that you are not putting a lot of words on your PowerPoint or whatever you're using to display, whether it's PowerPoint or one of the other little things that you can use. You want to really summarize a couple topics: lugares de acción, medios de transporte, medio ambiente, información sobre un tema, días festivos, right? So maybe spending 30 seconds on each, maybe a little bit more on something that's really relevant, important. Everything must be in Spanish presentation style. You shouldn't be reading it word for word. You can refer to notes, but don't read them out loud. It should be sounding nice and natural, like you're presenting about your city. Pay attention to grammar and vocabulary. 2 to 3 minutes. Playback, so make sure you can hear it. The volume is high. It must include videos, but you may include here, it's highlighted, key vocabulary, but you shouldn't have written text beyond necessary keywords or text headers, right? So maybe a header saying, now we're talking about medios de transporte, right? But then that's kind of it, and the rest are pictures to help you talk about stuff. But other than that, you don't really want to have a lot of words on there. If you're writing full sentences on there or you're reading from your slide, that's really going to affect your grade a lot in the oral final. And then when we're looking at the oral final, right? So recording your videos, some guides and tips. When we're looking at the oral final, that's really going to be watching these videos together and having a discussion. So I'm going to start with a couple questions to start off with, right? So some of these initial instructor grammar questions. So just some examples, but so really looking at, okay, getting into the practice of, again, you're going to introduce yourselves first, and then we're going to do a couple of these questions. I'll probably ask each person in the group one or the same one to everyone. It just depends. And then when it comes to the individual student in presentations, we're going to play your video, and then everyone's going to ask questions, right? Every student will ask about 2 questions, and really think of open-ended, right? ¿Qué más te sorprendió? ¿Aprendiste algo nuevo? ¿Qué me recomendarías que hiciera primero si yo visitara esta ciudad? Really open-ended. You must be able to talk more about what your city is. So here are some other good example questions that you can ask each other. So the idea is that you have to ask each other too, but I recommend coming up with at least 3 or 4, just in case one of your classmates asks the question before you had a chance, right? Or they ask it in the first round and you already, for the second round. So come up with a couple that are open-ended enough that you have a couple to choose from. And then you can write those down and have those ready for when you want to ask the question, okay? And then as far as signing up for the exam, it's same place, it's in groups. You just have to go, if yours is popping up with oral midterm, toggle here and make sure it's oral final. There's a couple different times here. If none of these times work for you, please do let me know. I chose these times because these are the last 2 days of class, so that gives everyone the most amount of time to prep. But if for some reason this doesn't work for you, early morning or evening, please do let me know, and we can find an alternate time, okay? And that's it, okay? Please do email me if you have any questions at all, and I hope this helps clarify some things. Hasta luego!